evening. I'm Jan Kowalski with Slate I Incorporated, and tonight I'm joined by Bill Lowry from the Chicago Community Trust. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And this is a live interactive show on CanTV Channel 21. And we're also streaming online at cantv.org/hotline. And tonight we're going to be discussing the Chicago Community Trust. And for the next 25 minutes, you're more than welcome to call in with any comments, questions, or concerns relating to the topic by calling the number at the bottom of your screen. And the number at the bottom of your screen should be 312-738-1060. So please join the discussion. Now, before we get into it, Bill, let me just tell you a little bit about Green Slate. My sponsor is Slate I Incorporated, and hopefully we can read this for our viewers at home. This is Slate I's email address, their website, and their phone number. And Slate I Incorporated is participates in activities to assist ex-offenders, including reentry programs, feeding the families of Inglewood. They've got a Kirby's Kids Camp, and they also have a community service program through the Circuit Court of Cook County. So if you need to get your community service hours completed, please, let me show you two again. There it is. Contact Green Slate at the phone number and or the website or email address that you see there. And of course, if you want to call in, if you didn't have time to get a pen and pencil to get that, you can call into the number on your screen, and I'm sure they'll more than help you by giving you the website and the phone number to call in for that. And I'm Jan Kowalski. Some of you who are not of Polish lineage might not be a little thrown by the Kowalski name. Anything with SKI is a little concerned. So here, let me show you what that looks like in real time. That's up here again, Kowalski. And to help you remember the Kowalski, I have got my little picture here. Let me show you. That is supposed to be a picture of a koala on skis because my name is Kowalski. And some people might say Kowalski. No, it's not Kowalski. And some people might say, oh, it's Kawasaki. No, it's not Kawasaki either. But it is Kowalski, and I've got one more little guy here to help you remember my name. Here, that's my little koala, and he's very serious there. And that's because he is 100% qualified. Because I'm Jan Kowalski. Now, let's get into it, Bill, here. Let's give Bill a hard time.
What's your name again?
Kowalski.
Okay, all right.
All right. First of all, Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a native Chicago. Been here all my life. I've been in Chicago all of my life with the exception of two things. One, I was in the Air Force years and years ago, and when I went away to school. Other than that, I've been here.
Well, what part of Chicago? North side, south side?
Well, south side.
West side?
I'm a south sider. Now I live in, and I guess we could call it the near west side. But I've lived on the south side most of my life. Grew up around the 60th and Eberhard, right at the south end of Washington Park. And have been there, as I said, here all of my life. My kids grew up in Chicago, and now my grandchildren, and now my great-granddaughter. So I'm a Chicago guy.
So am I. I grew up in Garfield Ridge.
Okay.
So I'm a Southsider too. I got my Sox hat. I didn't bring it tonight, but I do have my Sox hat. Though I love the Cubs. Nothing against the Cubs, but I'm sorry. I'm just a Southsider at heart.
Well, I'm a Southsider, but I'm a Cub fan.
There you go. I'm a Cub fan as well.
Okay.
Bill, what do you do for a living?
As little as possible. No,
That's actually a good one.
What I'm doing now, I'm working at Chicago Community Trust, and I serve as the special assistant to the president, Terry Mazzani, of the Chicago Community Trust.
Well, for our viewers, can you tell our viewers what the Chicago Community Trust is and or does?
It's a foundation, and a lot of people that don't know that much about it, they think that Chicago Community Trust is a bank, but it's not. It's a foundation, and what we do is we give grants. We give grants, annual grants to in the not-for-profit areas and in the areas of education, health, economic development, you name it. And we try to serve and do serve residents in Chicago and the surrounding areas. And we give away roughly, I would imagine, maybe $130 million a year
Wait, $130 million a year is given away?
Yeah, and most of that, though, is given away, and gets a little tricky. And what is called donor advised funds. And the donor advised funds are funds that individuals may have or families may have. And we will take, they will give us, they will develop a donor advised fund, and we will administer it for them. So for a small price, we will take care of the administration of that, and most of these families are families that are high income and high wealth families. But we also have monies for discretionary funds too, where we will give grants to organizations that need the money right now, and they're not indicated or directed by a particular person. The foundation determines the grants after looking at proposals that these organizations may give them. And these proposals may be from neighborhood organizations or the like, in almost anything in terms of housing, in terms of food depository. And the trust has been around for over 100 years. Actually,
Wow.
It started and we just celebrated a couple of years ago our 100-year anniversary. So we're now in our 102nd year.
Now, Bill, if you don't mind, I want to show our viewers at home, it's part of the first homepage for the Chicago Community Trust website. Let me just go to this.
Okay.
And I'm hoping our viewers can see this at home. One of the first things that pops up on the website is making good happen every day. So, Bill, maybe you can tell our viewers how you make good happen every day.
Well, I don't know if I can speak to that personally, but what I try to do is add value to whatever I'm doing and those that I'm relating to in that day. And if I can add value, then hopefully that's good value, and I try to do that. But as an organization, I think what we're talking about is to try to help those organizations and those people who need assistance of some kind, and without having some assistance from places like the trust or some other foundations, they would have a very difficult time trying to do the things that they want, whether it's feeding the people, whether it's educating people, or whatever endeavor that organization has. And you do that every day.
Well, let me ask you, Bill, it's more than just giving away money to people, isn't it?
Oh,
Let me show you this. This is from your website, the Chicago Community Trust website. Philanthropy is more than $1 million donations. Bill, what is philanthropy?
Well, philanthropy is really trying to do things for others, basically.
And how does the Community Trust do that?
Well, you're right. Aside from giving money, there are other dimensions of a foundation, and especially what we have. We would call a community foundation. And a community foundation is just what the name implies. We're trying to assist those people living within the community. And our community is Chicago and some of its surrounding areas. But some of the other things, aside from giving money and grants and so that people can have their operations and serving the people in their neighborhoods or in their areas, we also, one big area, is we convene. And by convening, we bring other organizations together to work on problems together. And so we serve as a convening agent to bring these organizations together to work on certain projects and to do certain things together and forming alliances to do things. It's also the reputation that we have is by giving some people, and giving some grants to some people, it enables them to leverage some of that money with other foundations to accumulate other capital that they might need, because we're not going to be able to totally support every organization. But by helping them somewhat, they can use that money and the leverage and the name of the trust to probably leverage that so that they can get some additional funds that they're going to need for their programs.
Well, Bill, can you give our viewers some kind of indication of which grants would be receptive to be funded by the Community Trust?
Well, a lot will depend on really the guidelines that an organization may have, whether it's the trust or some others, and also what emphasis they are. In our situation, we're trying to live up to our strategic plan. and I don't want to bore people with a lot
Strategic
of
plans,
strategic
okay.
plan. But there are certain areas that we consider to be extremely important. One is certainly education. Those things, and that there's so much to education. It's not just education as such. There's certain aspects of education that we want to invest in, and those people that are doing it, we want to help them and do the best they can in those areas. At one point, it might have been education reform, and now we're shifting and probably going to upper education in terms of high school education and some of the other things. At one point, we might have even invested in education for youngsters, the young kids. So education is big. Another huge item for us is race and equity. This has been it's extremely important to us now. It's been extremely important to the trust ever since it was established. And it's important to us. Inclusion is extremely important to us. Social justice is very important.
I was going to ask, what do you mean by race and equity?
Well, I mean, we're talking about the inclusion of all peoples of colors and religions and so forth in terms of being in the community, being included in the community, being able to participate in a meaningful way in the same way as anyone else, and no one should be excluded. So those activities that organizations may have that are inclusive, that will involve not just blacks, but also Latinos, Muslims, you name it. These are things that we're interested in if it's to the betterment of those people and to the community.
Well, let me ask you about education. You're not limiting it strictly to structured education. You're suggesting perhaps, let me clarify with you, that the education that the trust is interested in is more like public education. So it's getting the word out. It's not just structured education in the school setting.
That's true. That's true. In fact, we're very interested in those things that are of a public nature. Because that's probably why we exist. And one of the things that we will do is that we might have RFPs as our program people decide what are some areas through a board. We have a board, as like most organizations, and in our case it's called an executive committee. And the board will help us determine our direction and the areas of emphasis that we should have for funding. And once that's been established, then the program people will determine how we want to at least have outreach so that people will know what it is we're looking for, what we're willing to fund, and then they will respond to our RFPs. Give us proposals. Hold on.
Oh, I was going to ask you, what's an RFP? Apparently the committee trust needs an RFP.
Request for it. We will designate or write a narrative indicating the areas that we're interested in funding.
All right, and where can our viewers find these areas?
On our website. That's on the website, and we can keep up to date on those. But we have cycles of funding cycles, and our board meets. I guess I should know this. I'm embarrassed to say this, but our board meets, I guess, 3 or 4 times a year. Most of the funding that we get will have to go through the board. The recommendations are made by the program people. And then those recommendations for funding will go to the board. The board will discuss them and approve those that they feel they should. Most of the time those things will be approved. And then we have program officers who will work with the organizations to try to help them make sure that they're able to do the things that they said they wanted to do with the money that we get.
So the goals in the program, the requests are met then?
Yes.
Those are your program officers, is that right?
The program officers are the ones that work with the grantees during the year.
All right, let me just pause here for a station identification. You're watching Green Slate I Incorporated live on CAN-TV Channel 21 and cantv.org/hotline. In today's discussion, we are joined with Bill Lowry of the Chicago Community Trust. And if you have a comment, question, or concern, please join the discussion by calling the number at the bottom of your screen. It's 312-738-1060. Now, one question I have for you, Bill, is how do I find your grant, your RFP?
RFP?
Yeah, so how do I find the RFP so I can fill one out?
Well, again, I wanted to have everyone to realize or to think about our website, because the things that concern us and the things that we want to get out, we do keep on our website. And as I say, we try to keep it certainly current. So anything they want to know about us, the website is generally the best vehicle to use to get that information. Now, we also have a number. I mean, despite the
Oh, you can give it out, Bill. Go ahead.
First of all, you're assuming that I can remember it. But I think it's 312-616, I think 8,000.
616-8000.
And don't hold me to that, but
All
I
right,
think so. I don't call myself that much.
And the website's at Chicago Community Trust?
Yeah, actually,
.com?
yes, ChicagoCommunityTrust.com.
All right, let me ask you about some of the other programs here. I went to the website and I happened to see some really great stories here, and I was hoping that you could give us a little more information about these. The one that really piqued my interest is apparently Chicago Community Trust was assisting an organization, and here, let me just read the headline here for you. Ice cream for breakfast spreads happiness. So, Bill, do you know anything about the breakfast ice cream program that's spreading happiness?
No, but it sounds delicious.
It does. And it's also spreading hope. And I thought that was like the best idea in the whole world.
Well, that is. I think we should clarify something. First of all, I am not in the program area. And by serving or attempting to serve the president, I might do some things that, well, I serve at his pleasure. And some of the things that he has me doing may involve programs, but a lot of it involves administrative things and other things. So I'm not directly involved in the programs. But there's one thing that should be mentioned here that we started, I don't know, about 3 years ago, I guess we've had what we call On the Table.
What's on the
and
table?
And on the table, it was actually originated from, I guess, the way that, to our knowledge, the foundation was started by a group of people around the table having lunch or something and trying to decide what kind of instrument or synergy should be developed so that we could treat the issues that exist in the city in terms of the people, as it relates to their employment, as it relates to their housing and anything like that. And so it was called On the Table. So then we started this On the Table concept about 3 years ago, inviting people to meet around the table to discuss issues that relate to your neighborhood or to your region. And the first year that we did it, we were shooting to get enough On the Table sponsorships and people to include maybe 10,000 people. And then we upped the ante the year after that, and this last On the Table, which was normally in May, around the time of our anniversary, because May 15th, I guess, is the anniversary date of the trust. The On the Table this time included roughly 100,000 people, which is something.
Wow, how do you get 100,000 people around the table?
Well, it's a big table.
Giant table.
It's a
giant table.
No, but what people do is certain organizations and everything will determine that they want to conduct an on-the-table session of their own, wherever it is. And so whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, or during the day, and they will invite certain people in, whatever that number is, and wherever the location is. And then they'll discuss some of the areas that exist, they feel, or the people that exist in that particular area, that neighborhood and so forth. Try to identify some of those issues, and also talk about what might...
Oh, Bill, hang on, we have a caller. Caller? Hello, caller, do you have a comment or question? Caller?
Hi, Jan.
Hi, yes, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I got a chance to go to a couple of those On the Table. One of them was at the University of Chicago. And basically they talk about race relationships, how to interact with people in your neighborhood, and prevention. It's sort of somewhat like how do you have two kids not fighting each other, and prevention. What do they call that? To resolve problems. That's one of the things I would
conflict
say
resolution.
People talked about most.
Mm-hmm.
So it was powerful, and the food was delicious. They served
The food was delicious.
But here's the interesting thing: is they have it in you can have one in your backyard.
Right. Yeah, it's determined by the people who
Determined.
conduct, right.
Yeah.
And also the topics can be determined by the people. We had a particular emphasis this last time because of our interest in race and equity. But people they can discuss whatever they want to. And this gentleman, what they had, it sounds to me like it was pretty substantive. Not only did you enjoy it, but were you able to also come up with some things that might be done, which also feeds us so that we know what we should be investing in?
Caller, were any solutions discussed? Oh, I guess we lost our caller there, Bill.
Okay.
So, but the program essentially is just sitting down together and trying to brainstorm ideas?
Right. That's exactly right. But what's come out, there's been some astounding things come out. Some people have really identified not only some issues, but identified some programmatic things for the neighborhoods or the area to work on. But what these ideas do, as I said, they feed us. There's nourishment for us so that we can, one, not only identify what might be some of the issues that people feel exist within the communities, but also what should be the focus for us and what should we be thinking about as a foundation in terms of the investments that we would make.
Well, let me ask you, Bill. I'm sure a hot issue on everyone's minds right now is the violence in Chicago. Is Chicago Community Trust, do you have any upcoming exciting programs that are hoping to deal with this violence and hoping to reduce it?
Well, the operative word there, I guess, is exciting. I don't know if they're exciting, but I think that we're certainly trying to attack this in some way that would be beneficial to the community and the people who live within the communities. And in terms of the trust is joined with several other foundations in developing a program now where they will develop funds and resources that can go into the community to serve some of the programs serving youth in terms of their involvement.
Bill, we've got another caller. Caller, do you have a comment or question?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, caller.
For community organizations to qualify for funding from the foundation, do they have to be a 501c3 or can they just be like residents in a neighborhood or community?
We're looking at 501c3s, I think.
Is it limited strictly to the non-for-profits, Bill?
I believe that. Now I'm gonna hedge on this, but I think that's one of the qualifications. But I would have to really check that.
Well, caller, let me just help you out there. From my understanding, being incorporated as a 501c3, if it's a not-for-profit entity, then I believe it's certainly something that can be accomplished. There's forms that need to be filled out and declarations that need to be made, but I don't think it would be cost prohibitive, if that's what you're indicating. If it's limited to a 501c3 and you've got a not-for-profit idea going on, I don't think the fact that you don't have an established 501c3 would prohibit it. Maybe in the process we can get your 501c3 going.
I think what she was also referring to is do you have to have the 501c3 to be eligible to receive a grant? Is that what your question is?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm saying I think that we prefer. I'm not saying it's mandatory, but I think we prefer to have a 501c3. Now, the process you just described, the process, and the process does exist, and they can do it, but it takes a little while. It doesn't cost a heck of a lot of money, but it can be done. But to answer your question, I would have to go back to that. But let me put it this way: I think that most of the investments that we make and the grants that we give are to people that have that classification.
Thank you, caller. But Bill, I know our time is limited here, but not only do you give away money, but you also accept money, and I know you referred to that at the beginning of the show. For instance, if you have money and no heirs and you're getting up in age, do you accept donor funds for distribution?
Oh yeah. In fact, the donor-advised funds, that's basically what that is.
Donor-advised funds.
Yeah, now the donor-advised fund, first of all, you're right. We're going through a sort of a cultural change as far as I'm concerned. It's a foundation that was used to receiving funds to a foundation now that's accumulating funds and raising funds.
And using them for great purposes.
We hope so. That's why we exist, and we want to do that. But I think I still want to make that distinction when we talk about a donor advised fund. That's a fund that people might have where they designate the money to go to a particular area, a particular school, particular program, and we administer that for them. Now, many times we would be able to use some of the money that they have and some of the things that are important to us as well.
Well, for instance, if I'm a wealthy widow and I'm getting up in age, can I leave property to the community trust with essentially directions that it be used for educating, I don't know, Polish children?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you can do that, and for a few basis points, we would take care of that and administer that for you.
Fantastic. Thank you for watching and participating in today's show. And I'm Jan Kowalski with Green Slate I, and tonight my guest has been Bill Lowry with the Chicago Community Trust. Thank you, Bill, for joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And tonight my technician and producer has been Ziv Sistrunk. And, of course, we still remember and miss greatly Robert Cooley. He was one of the 100 men that were killed in the July 4th weekend in Chicago. Robert, we miss you. And thank you, and have a good night.